Last time we were solving one-step inequalities by adding or subtracting. Today we're going to look at one-step inequalities that can be solved by 1 multiplying or 2 dividing. Let's first look at the division properties of inequalities. If you divide each side of an inequality by a positive number, you leave the inequality symbol unchanged. Here are a couple of examples. 3x is greater than 21. Let's divide both sides by 3. I get a solution of x is greater than 7. Again, I didn't change the inequality symbol. In this second one, now this one's slightly different because the variable is on the right. I am going to divide. And the only reason why I'm changing anything here is because the variable's on the right, and we always want to start with the variable, so we'll get x is greater than 8. Third problem, if my variable's on the left and I'm dividing by a positive number, I'm going to keep my inequality symbol exactly as I see it. Let's try one more. I'm dividing by a positive number. If I'm dividing by a positive, I do not change my inequality symbol. That's our first property. Our second property says if you divide each side of an inequality by a negative number, you must reverse the symbol. Let's see a couple of these. Again, if I'm dividing by a negative number, I have negative 6x is less than 24. I am going to divide by a negative. If the number I'm dividing by is negative, I must reverse the symbol. Negative 5x is greater than 35. I'm going to divide both sides by negative 5. X is now greater than negative 7. If I'm dividing by a negative, I must reverse my symbol. Third problem, let's divide by negative 4. As soon as you hear me say divide by negative 4, I'll reverse the direction of my inequality. Negative divided by negative gave me positive. Fourth problem, negative 7x is less than negative 42. Let's divide by negative 7. If I'm dividing by a negative, I reverse the direction of my inequality. And there you have our first two rules, and they are regarding dividing. So I see multiplication, my inverse is division. The very important rule is that if you're dividing by a negative, you reverse your inequality symbol. Let's look at the multiplication properties of equality now. In the multiplication property of equality, just like the division, if you multiply each side of an inequality by a positive number, you leave the inequality symbol unchanged. I have x divided by 6, so the inverse is to multiply. When I multiply, it cancels on the left. I get x is less than 6 times 6, which is 36. Remember to keep that inequality symbol exactly the way you see it. I have x divided by 2, so the inverse is to multiply. Whatever I do on the left, I do on the right. I get x is less than or equal to negative 16. Once again, I notice a little bit of a switch here. I am going to be multiplying both sides by 3. I get 15 is less than x. I'm reversing this only because my variable's on the opposite side. Variables always come first. So I'm actually throwing in that rule from the last time just so that we don't forget it. So if we multiply each side of an inequality by a negative number, once again, if I'm multiplying by a negative number, I reverse my symbol. x divided by -3, so inverse of division is multiplication. Let's multiply by a -3. That's going to reverse the direction of my inequality. X divided by -2, inverse is to multiply. What am I multiplying by? -2. X is now greater than or equal to -10. Let's multiply both sides by -4. Because I'm multiplying by a negative, I will reverse the direction of my inequality. Negative times negative gives me positive. So you see that we're trying not to forget, we're reinforcing our rules of signed numbers, and we're also now adding on some rules about our inequalities that involve multiplication and division. So I want to leave you with some very important statements in regards to inequalities. The less than and greater than symbols are open circles when graphed on a number line. The less than or equal to and the greater than or equal to are closed circles when we graph them on a number line. Always write an inequality with the variable first. If you solve an inequality and you get 4 is greater than x, it should be rewritten as x is less than 4. And today's rules, when you multiply or divide by a negative, you must reverse the direction of your inequality. These are the most important things to remember about these sections. We had a couple of sections on inequalities. We're going to have a quiz next week, and we're closing out this chapter, so we'll be having a chapter test shortly. So we'll do a little practice tonight, and I wish you a good weekend and a happy Halloween.